I want you to see this. Welcome to Fermentation Week. To make sourdough at home, all you need is two ingredients, flour and water, plus a bunch of little equipment and some technique which I'll be teaching you today. All right, I assume you have some prior knowledge about sourdough starter, so we're gonna jump right in. Now first we're gonna start with our levain. In a clean jar, you're gonna add 35 grams mature sourdough starter, 35 grams all-purpose flour, 35 grams whole wheat flour, 70 grams room temperature filtered water. Mix all that together. I would advise you to use a bigger jar as mine did overflow a little. Place a loose lid on it and ferment it for about 8 to 10 hours or let it sit overnight. Next morning, we're gonna make our stiff levain. Take a bowl and mix 140 grams of all-purpose flour, 20 grams of whole wheat flour, 65 grams of sourdough starter, and 80 grams of filtered water. Now mix everything, cover it with a plastic wrap, and we let it ferment for about 4 hours in a cool, dry place. Now, after 3 hours into your stiff levain, we are going to mix flour and water for your autolease. So, in a large bowl, mix together 595 grams of bread flour, 105 grams of whole wheat flour. Now measure about 558 grams of filtered water, but of that separate 50 grams in a small bowl and place it aside. You will need that later for the mix. Now get your hands in there and mix everything until combined. Do not overmix it. If you have a stand mixer, you can even use it, but make sure you do not overmix it. Now cover it up and let it rest for about an hour until our stiff levain is ready. The reason I use stiff starter instead of just levain is because once the levain collapses, it starts smelling acidic, then it will eventually have an acetone smell. So the benefit of using stiff levain is that it stays at its peak longer and takes time to turn acidic. Now we're gonna mix the stiff levain into the flour mixture. Use some of that water you kept aside to get it incorporated. Spread that out, dimple it into your dough, but I like to pour tiny little splash of it and not all of it. Then mix the dough together by hand. Good for the biceps. Once everything is integrated, I usually use my palm to press the dough down and my fingers to scoop it up. Repeat that a couple of times and cover it up and let it rest for about 15 minutes. Now sprinkle 18 grams of salt over the top and add the rest of your water that was kept aside and mix it the same way as we did before. Now for the next step, I would prefer you use a kitchen counter as you will need a smooth surface to work the dough. I usually wet my hands to prevent the dough from sticking to my fingers. Dump it down on the work surface, no flour, and we're gonna slap and fold. Now this is gonna take some practice if you have never done this before, especially with the dough this hydrated. Facing the dough, you're gonna pick the dough up using your fingers. It's gonna stick pretty bad. You're gonna pick it up and then you're gonna slap it back down, then fold it over itself. Pick it up, slap it back down, and fold it over itself. It's going to be really difficult to handle at first, but as you do this more, it's going to start to come together and it won't stick as bad, and then you'll start to kind of get a flow going, and it'll take about 4 to 5 minutes. Now once the dough has become smooth and it's not sticking so bad anymore, you can now transfer it back to your bowl, cover it again, and let it rest. This bulk ferment period is going to be about 4 hours, in which we're going to perform 6 total folds. After letting your dough rest for 15 minutes, grab the dough and stretch it up as far as it will extend without tearing. Fold it over itself and repeat that all around the perimeter of the dough. This is one set of fold. Now place it in a warm environment and let it rest for 15 minutes. Repeat that 2 more times, so grand total of 3 15 minutes interval folds. Then let it rest for 30 minutes. After that 30 minutes is up, perform another set of folds and repeat that 2 more times. So you're gonna have a grand total of 3 15 minutes interval folds and 3 30 minutes interval folds. Then just let it rest for the remainder of the bulk ferment in a warm environment for about 2 hours. Once you have finished the remainder of your bulk ferment, your dough should have risen about 80-85% grand total. Gently dump it onto an unfloured work surface. Just eyeball it and split it in half, or you can use a weighing scale to measure it. Use a bench scraper and pre-shape each dough into light balls. This is just pre-shape, so don't make it too tight. Now let those balls rest for 20 minutes. So this is a Benetton which we will use to ferment our sourdough. And if you don't have it, then you can even use a bowl, but preferably get a Benetton. You can just buy them online. Now put a cheesecloth over your Benetton and sprinkle some flour on it to prevent the dough from sticking to it. Now we are going to shape the dough. First dust some flour onto the work surface, then loosen the bottom with the scraper and gently flip it over. Be careful not to de-gas it. First, fold the top up to the center, then stretch and fold the right side to the 3/4 over to the left side, then fold the left side over to the right side. And then stretch and fold the top part to the center. Use your fingers and thumb to roll it over, tightening the dough, but remember not to degas it. Now roll it itself to the bottom and gently seal it at the bottom. Now I like to create a bit of tension using my fingers, or you can use a bench scraper as well. Now flip it over and seal the bottom, then place it in a Benetton, seam side facing up and smooth side facing down. Now sprinkle some flour on the dough and then cover it with the cheesecloth. Now repeat the same with another dough, and then once we are ready, individually put the dough into the plastic bag and seal it. You can use a rubber band if needed so no air can get into it. This step is very crucial as it will prevent the dough from drying out. Now place these bad boys into the refrigerator to proof overnight for about 12 to 15 hours. So now I'm going to use the deck oven, but you can use your home convection oven to bake it. You can use a Dutch oven or a stone to slide the dough. Both work just fine, but I prefer the stone, and if you are using the stone, you need to create steam, for which I generally add a tray of boiling hot water. You need to preheat your oven at 250 degrees Celsius for at least an hour. It needs to be screaming hot. Next morning, we're gonna do a poke test. Gently poke the dough, and if it bounces back about 80% and leaves a small dent, then it is perfectly proof. If it bounces back completely, then it needs more time to proof. And if it doesn't bounce back, then your dough has overproofed. As you can see here, that once I poke, it gently bounces back but leaves a small dent, so they are perfectly proofed. Now get that bad boy on a parchment paper so it doesn't stick to the surface and becomes easy to slide in. Sprinkle some flour on the dough, then carefully dump your dough on the parchment paper and use a blade or a lame, but be careful with the blade, do not cut yourself. Now score your dough from top to bottom about a quarter of an inch thick at about a 45-degree angle. Use the peel to pick up the dough, which will be quite easy with the parchment paper, and then slide it into the oven. Now bake that bad boy for 20 minutes. After, you can remove the steam, or if you are using Dutch oven, then remove the lid, then reduce the oven temperature to 230 degrees Celsius and bake for another 20 minutes until it reaches a nice golden brown color. Get that bad boy to cool on a wire rack and make sure you let it cool completely at least for an hour before cutting it. And boom, you got bread. Please, it is my favorite bread to make and I love it with just some butter on it. Easily the most healthy bread you can make at home. And that is the sound of patience paying rent. No commercial yeast, no bread improvers, no shortcuts. It might feel a little intimidating, but don't worry, if you follow each step properly, bam, you got yourself an artisanal sourdough bread. Alright guys, and this is it. This is the advanced method for making sourdough bread at home, and all you need is the techniques you learned today and a bit of patience because you might not get it right in the first time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any other breads you want me to make, just write it down in the comments below.